You never bought an AI chip, you never trained a model, you have probably never set foot in a data center. So, explain this. Why did your power bill go up to help pay for one? Most people think their electricity bill is simple. You use power, you pay for the power you used. But hiding underneath that number is a second market almost nobody talks about. And right now, that market is quietly charging you for the artificial intelligence boom. Here is how it actually works. The company that runs your regional grid does not just sell electricity in the moment. It has to make sure the lights stay on years from now on the single worst day of the year, the hottest afternoon when every air conditioner in the region is screaming at once. To guarantee that, the grid runs something called a capacity auction. Think of it as paying power plants a retainer, not for the electricity they sell day to day, but just to promise they will be standing by, ready when demand peaks. Plants bid in. The grid buys enough promised capacity to cover the forecast, plus a safety cushion. Whatever price clears that auction gets baked into the bills of everyone on the grid. For years, this was boring. Demand was flat, prices were low, nobody thought about it. Then AI showed up. A single large AI data center can draw as much power as a small city. Some of the biggest planned campuses are designed to pull a gigawatt or more, which is roughly the output of a full nuclear reactor, feeding one building full of chips. And they are not arriving one at a time. They are arriving in a flood. So the grid does what it is designed to do. It looks at all the data centers that have requested to connect, and it forecasts that demand. Then it goes into the capacity auction and buys enough promised power to cover it. And that is where the bill quietly changes hands. Let me give you the region where this is clearest: PJM. It is the grid operator for about 67 million people across 13 states and Washington, D.C. If you live anywhere from Chicago to New Jersey to Virginia, this is probably your grid. In PJM's most recent capacity auction, held in December 2025, the total cost came to $16.4 billion. And according to Monitoring Analytics, which is PJM's own independent market monitor, data center demand accounted for $6.5 billion of that. That is 40% of the entire auction. 40% of the cost, traced to one category of customer. Now here is the twist that should stop you cold. Of that $6.5 billion, about $6.2 billion was for data centers that have not even been built yet. Buildings that do not exist. Servers that have never been switched on. The grid forecasted that future hunger, bought capacity to cover it today, and the cost is already moving onto bills. So you are not just paying for AI. In a very real sense, you are prepaying for AI that is still on a blueprint. And the price of that promised power has gone vertical. PJM's auctions used to clear at around $29 per megawatt day a couple of years ago. The latest auction cleared at the absolute ceiling, $333 per megawatt day, the price cap. A record for the third auction in a row. Step back and the capacity charge across PJM went from roughly $2.2 billion 2 years ago to nearly $15 billion to over $16 billion now. Call it a seven-fold jump in about 2 years, and it would have been worse. Without a temporary price cap deal in Pennsylvania, analysts estimate the latest auction would have cleared near $530 per megawatt day, roughly 60% higher still. Here's the part that feels unfair, and it is the entire point of the story. When the grid buys all that extra capacity to feed data centers, the cost is not handed to the tech companies. It is socialized. It spreads across every meter on the grid. Homes, schools, small businesses, your apartment. Everyone pays into the same pool that keeps the lights on. So when the pool gets more expensive because of AI demand, everyone's share goes up. How much? It depends heavily on your state and your utility because each one passes these costs through differently. PJM itself says the record capacity prices could mean a 1.5% to 5% increase on some customers' bills starting in June 2026. But independent estimates run higher over time. Some analysts project the average family in PJM territory could be paying around $70 more per month by 2028. And cumulative consumer costs through the early 2030s, by some projections, could top $100 billion. I want to be fair. Those bigger numbers are model estimates, not amounts already printed on a bill. But even PJM's conservative range means real money, leaving real households to underwrite a build-out most of those households will never directly touch. And the demand curve only bends one way. PJM projects its peak demand will grow by about 32 gigawatts between 2024 and 2030. All but roughly 2 of those gigawatts are data centers. The grid is being reshaped around server farms. There is also a reliability cost hiding in here. In that same record auction, PJM did not even secure enough resources to hit its own target safety margin, so the system is paying more for less cushion at exactly the moment demand is exploding. So who is fighting about this? Consumer advocates and groups like the NRDC argue the design is broken. Their position, and I will frame it as a position, is that data centers should bring their own power. A rule sometimes called bring your own capacity. The idea is simple. If your AI campus needs a gigawatt, you go secure a gigawatt of generation instead of leaning on the shared pool that everyone else funds. NRDC estimates a rule like that could pull capacity costs back towards $7 billion a year by 2030. Several state governors have pushed PJM in the same direction. Make the data centers pay for the demand they create. On the other side, PJM and the data center operators argue the demand is real. The economic growth is real, the jobs and tax revenue are real, and that the grid has to plan for load wherever it comes from. Both of those things can be true at once. The build-out can be valuable, and the cost can be landing on the wrong people. That is the actual fight. Not whether AI is good or bad, but who pays for the power it eats. So zoom all the way out. Artificial intelligence does not run on magic. It runs on electricity, staggering amounts of it, and that electricity has to be promised and paid for years before the first prompt is ever typed. The companies racing to build it get the capability and the valuation. And a slice of the bill, quietly, lands on you. Next time your power bill ticks up and there is no obvious reason, no new appliance, no colder winter, remember there is a second market underneath the one you can see. A market where the future is being pre-purchased in your name. You never bought an AI chip, but somewhere on your statement, you might already be paying for one. If this changed how you read your power bill, follow for a new story every day.